we've got a domestic population here who's not looking for a job. Or you could say there is no work. Well, North Dakota started doing it.
Ron, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Ron Catlett. I'm one of Greg's staffers. I'm from Kalispell originally. Always enjoyed coming over to Lincoln County. Got up early this morning and been traveling around with Greg and having a good time doing it. So.
Yeah, good. And
James, I'm with the Montana Democratic Party.
just arrived, yeah, I didn't follow. We drove Ekalaka to Eureka last week. James came with us all over. So he's just in the state a little while. We just came from New York City, or Long Island, New York State.
Me too. Nice to have you. Now go home.
Good. And
my name is Bob Henlin. I'm with the Western News. I actually had a question about, a little off topic, but your foundation's donation to anti-gay hate groups and whether that will influence your decisions as governor, especially in relation to Governor Bullock's recent non-discrimination executive order. Would you plan to leave that intact or overturn it?
thank you for being here. First, let me say, well, I'll address your question because you asked it, but I'm going to go back to regulations here in a second. We'll focus on that. Discrimination is wrong. When we ran our business in Bozeman, we hired people based on their ability, and they got promoted based on their contribution to the business. I run the state exactly the same way. I disagree with the way the governor did that executive order because he didn't consult with anybody. He did it unilaterally. I don't disagree with the sentiment of it, though. I don't think the state should be taking sexual orientation into account in hiring or promotion. So the reason we're here, now that we've got that little rabbit trail, is to talk about how we make it easier to create more jobs. And that's really, I want to give you a little bit of background on myself. I've met a number of you before. We'll talk about that. But then I want to get input from you. Ron was kind enough to pass out these little Regulation Roundup cards. And I really want your input. I've done hundreds and hundreds of meetings all over the state over the course of the last year. I've heard over and over again from small business owners that they're covered up in regulations. And it's hard. There's a lot of paperwork. There's issues with workman's comp. There's a whole bunch of different things. And I firmly believe that jobs and opportunity are only created in the private sector. They're not created by government programs or handouts or any of these sorts of things. And we've got to make it easier for small business people to succeed. So you're in a perfect position to provide input because you just got started, right? So we have a website, regulationroundup.com, and up there is a really simple form that we're asking Montanans to put in the regulations that are giving them all the paper cuts. Because what I've heard over and over again is people are dying a death of 1,000 cuts. And so we're rounding up the regulations, and my commitment is when I'm governor, we'll take the excessive ones. There's a couple vets here. I'm here because of a World War II vet. He was my junior high school science teacher, and he flew P-51s in World War II, trained at Maelstrom. And the only way he could afford to come here from Pennsylvania was to bring a couple of van loads of ninth graders with him every summer. So I came here 40 years ago, 1976. We drove all the way from Pennsylvania to Red Lodge, and then went back up into the backcountry. And he was brave enough to take 18 ninth graders with him up into the woods with him. And we backpacked up to Black Canyon Lake and all that. And I fell in love and knew I wanted to make a life here. So I grew up in Pennsylvania. I've been here. My wife and I have raised our 4 kids in Bozeman. Our daughter was born there. She's now off at college. And I'm an engineer by training, electrical engineer. Business guy. I've never run for public office. But we've really prospered in Montana. And I think that's the need that we have. We need more jobs. Because today we export too many other people. So we had this idea that the internet potentially removes geography as a constraint. We started a little business in our home with no outside capital. It was just my wife and I. And over 15 years, we grew to 1,100 people. And the average wage in Gallatin County was almost $90,000 a year. And then the thing that was really amazing was that that spawned other jobs. Those tech jobs were good for the techies, but then it created sales jobs, marketing jobs, accounting jobs, and by putting a $90,000 a year job in the community, the first thing that family did was buy or build a home, and that created construction jobs, real estate jobs, and restaurant jobs. In 2014, 40% of all the wage growth in the entire state occurred in Gallatin County. And that's something I'm quite proud of, that I had a hand in making that happen, because it created a lot of different outcomes. That business, we took it public, traded on Wall Street in 2004, and then it was purchased by Oracle Corporation in 2012. I had the great pleasure, was able to hire Steve Daines when we were about 100 employees. So Steve and I worked side by side for 12 years, and I'm thrilled we have him representing us back in Washington. So, why am I running for governor? Well, it's really simple. We've been incredibly blessed with the success we've enjoyed in Montana. We've raised our 4 kids here, and I think I share this with a lot of Montanans. I'd like to have my kids around the table on Sunday afternoon, and I don't want to have to get on an airplane to go see my grandkids' ball games and recitals. But if we don't have a vibrant private sector, and we don't have jobs for people, it's not going to happen. So that's it. It's really simple. There's 4 things I focus on if I'm governor. Number 1, we need more high-wage jobs. Up here in Lincoln County, we need to figure out how to use our natural resources to create livelihoods. We've lost over 500 jobs in timber here just in the last year. We continue to get hurt. I've been working on this, been watching what's going on with this Montanora mine. We can't get a permit out of DEQ at the state level. And it's just honestly outrageous that we could take 11 years to say maybe. As you know, almost 500 jobs hang in the balance there. And we need to responsibly develop our natural resources so we can create livelihoods here in the state. And that is both pushing back on federal overreach. It's also getting effective leadership at DEQ so we can actually process a permit in a reasonable amount of time. I don't believe that we should say yes to every permit, but I do believe we ought to be able to say yes or no a lot faster than a decade. So that's one area of focus. Another one is, I think we have opportunities in manufacturing. We have great manufacturers here in the state. I think high-tech represents an opportunity. We now have 250 high-tech firms in the state. It's 15% of our state economy. It's growing faster than any other sector, and it's not constrained by geography. We do need good internet connectivity. We may not have it right away up every side canyon, but if we get it in the communities, we can start to build an economy around it. That's why last year I mailed invitations to almost 20,000 Montanans who had left the state, invite them to come home and bring a job with them. Now you're a telecommuter, that's what I was promoting. Oracle, the business we sold our company to, if you go on their website today, there's over 1,000 jobs that could be filled here, and they average $100,000 a year if you have the right skills. And it's not just for techies. As I traveled around the state last year, a travel agent job can be done remotely, medical transcription, you're an insurance adjuster.
I'm an underwriter for National Flood Insurance Program.
Right. Event planners, graphic designers, all these jobs are non-technical jobs, can be done remotely. This is a list of companies that don't care where you live. And imagine in a community like this, we've been exporting our kids for decades. If we get just half a dozen to come home each year and bring a job with them, every one of them would buy or build a home. They'd enroll their kids in the local school. They'd shop downtown. It would bring vibrancy back into our rural communities, and it would complement our natural resources industries. I think it's a strategy that can work for Libby, it can work for Baker, it can work for Ekalaka. The internet really changes the rules. And again, it might mean coming into town and getting out your PJs.
But the thing is I guess what frustrates me is I'm on the phone to Frontier at least once a month. And all I get is the same runaround song. I'm paying the same amount of money for my internet service as this person over here who gets that full service. So if you can't offer me what you're, you know, so I'm constantly after them.
Yeah, I realize you're frustrated
And
with
it's
that.
very frustrating, you know, I live where I live because
It's pretty.
it's gorgeous.
It is, it's
You know,
pretty.
and when I answer the phone, you know, thank you for calling National Flood Service, and somebody says, how are you doing today? I said, I'm living the dream. They always go, ha. I said, no, seriously, I'm living the dream.
Yeah.
I overlook my ranch, I built a beautiful office, I watch my horses all day as I work. I have I have what would be considered a very high stressful job because of the regulations that, for us, that come down from the Department of Homeland Security, through FEMA, through this, these are who I'm dealing with. My stress level should be through the roof.
Yeah.
But because of my work environment, I have the best job in the world.
Yeah.
I want to keep this job.
And if there were more people like you here, we'd have a more vibrant private sector, and that would create opportunities.
Mhm.
So that's all good. So I think number one is high wage jobs. Number two is we got to get education right. This is why I've been a strong proponent for getting computer science in all the high schools. We started a program called Code Montana, which provided computer science curriculum to all the middle schools and high schools in the state. And that's really making it. I think we need to prepare our young people to prepare for the future. I also believe that we push too many young people into four-year degree programs. We need more emphasis on trades education. That's why we started a manufacturing scholarship program. And I had no question. I had a young man come up to me at Flathead Valley Community College, and I visited. You have a local campus here as well. Yeah, I've been out. I visited with the team out there last time I was out. But a young man come up to me and he said, Mr. Gianforte, thank you for the scholarship. We had about 300 people, veterans and low-income Montanans, go through this program to help get welding and machining certificates. And this young man came up to me and said, thank you for the scholarship. Now, it was only $1,000, but it paid half his tuition. And he said, I'm the first one in my family that ever graduated from high school. I'm 22 years old. I'm married and I have 2 little girls. And then he stood up a little straighter and he said, I'm learning how to weld so I can put a roof over their head. And we owe it to Montanans to help them get the skills so they can stand on their own feet and don't become a ward of the state. So they have the dignity that comes from that. And there are manufacturers in the state here that have lots of jobs open, but we don't have people with the skills to match them. We've got to bring them back. It's interesting, in Lewistown, we have 500 manufacturing jobs over there. And like Tom Spica runs aluminum fabrication. He has 60 employees. He said he could go to 120 if he had more people with the right skills, but he can't find them. Our local 2-year school there, they do a nice job, but they only produce nurses. There's no welding program in Lewistown, which is what the local employers need. We've got to bring this connection back. I said, Tom, what are you looking for in an employee? He said, well, if I can find somebody with a high school diploma who can measure a piece of material and cut it to length, I could hire him. I said, Tom, that sounds like shop class. He says, exactly. Can you get shop class back? You know, so I think this is some basic skills. I'm not saying this is going to be easy, but it's not that complicated to look at a market, understand what the market needs, and then tie the education with it. So it's jobs, it's education. It's also accountability at the state government. When we were running our company in Bozeman, I had to sign a letter every 90 days that said if we screwed up the financials, I would go to jail. My CFO and I both had to sign that letter every 90 days for 8 years. And we used to joke that, like, if we screwed it up, we'd have side-by-side cells in the penitentiary someplace. Well, our current governor lost $1 billion off the balance sheet last year for the state. And there were 125 accounting errors, and he passed it off as a clerical error. Well, certainly nobody went to jail. Nobody lost their job. Nobody even got reprimanded. It's complete incompetence. We need to bring some accountability to Helena. Helena has also overcharged all of you by almost $500 million in overpaid taxes. And our legislature in this last session passed 3 tax reduction bills, all of which were passed by the House, passed by the Senate, vetoed by the governor. It would have reduced income tax rates, it would have reduced capital gains rates, and put money back in people's pockets. I think you know what to do with it. It's also the case that we did nothing about the business equipment tax. Personally, I think it's the most regressive tax we have because it disincents capital investment. I would eliminate it. We could have reduced the income rates, cap gain rates, eliminated business equipment tax, spend $150 million on infrastructure, which we never got around to doing in the last two sessions, and still had a $150 million surplus. I think that's just common sense business leadership. But we don't have any business experience up at health. I also think we need new leadership in our state agencies. And I think we need somebody at DEQ who can efficiently process permit applications in a reasonable amount of time. There's nobody there that can do it right now. I think we need a landowner in charge of DNRC. I think the Department of Labor needs somebody leading it who's actually had an employee before. It's a simple concept. Let's put leadership in place who's actually walked in the shoes of the individuals that of the people they're serving. Right? Simple concept. And then healthcare, we've got to get our arms around healthcare costs. We need to preserve rural access to healthcare. We need to maintain quality, but we've got to bring costs down because that's another burden on small business that makes it hard to start. So the whole reason we're here is to collect the regulations. To collect the regulations that are getting in the way of small business owners. And I'd love to get your input. So what sorts, you just started up. What things have you run into?
Taxes. I haven't been here long enough to fill out any taxes, but the following year, starting next year, I'll have to pay taxes. It's taxes on everything that I own,
What's the business that you started up?
I have a DVD rental business. I rent DVDs. It all depends on the on the day. You could have a really good day. For me, it was about $60. I had bad days where I don't even make any money. It's an ongoing process. If I don't make rent, I can't stay. And then I have to move, or I have to find a place that is less. And that involves me moving my stuff and so forth. And I end up losing my entire business, losing everything I put into it.
Okay. So other thoughts? Yes, sir.
Well, I was on your phone town hall.
Oh, yeah,
chat
town hall,
tonight,
yeah.
And I heard a number of folks, and I never really clearly understood why Montana is so high on their workers' comp. Do you know why we're so high?
Well, we need to investigate it. I compare it with North Dakota. Our rates are about 3 times higher than North Dakota, and we actually have less benefits. There's a couple of differences between the programs. One difference is that in North Dakota, they have a schedule of benefits that say, if you have this type of injury, this is the payment. Okay? In Montana, we have a workman's comp board in Helena, and every complaint is arbitrated with lawyers on both sides. So there's a lot more overhead associated with it. Now, I think if we could come up with a schedule of benefits that we all agree is fair, it'd be much easier to resolve disputes. That's one of the challenges. I can't fully explain the differences between the two. I think what I would do as governor is I would do an accounting audit of our plan versus North Dakota. Let's at least explain the differences. North Dakota is a monopoly system. Ours is a free market system. But that also doesn't explain the differences in costs. North Dakota also is much more proactive in workplace safety programs. And this is a sort of situation where, you know, a little bit invested gives you a big return in workman's comp claims. I'm not sure we're as proactive in doing workplace safety things. Because there isn't that much. You think about North Dakota and Montana, there's not that much different. There's a big ag base, there's natural resources, there's oil, gas. We're both rural states. There shouldn't be that much difference between the two of them. Theirs is one of the lowest cost systems in the country. Ours is one of the highest cost systems in the country.
Well, just excuse me, one more question. I talked to an electrician today that owns a company here, and he had a company, a manual worker company. He said they pay about a quarter of what we pay in Montana, so you're bracketed on both sides of the state.
Yeah.
Lower costs.
We ought to better fix this.
Yeah.
But we need to go in, shine a bright light, explain the differences. I'm not saying we should adopt North Dakota or Idaho, but let's learn from those two programs and adopt the best aspects of both and fix it. That's what an engineer does, right? We just solve problems.
No, he's mirroring exactly what I'm saying. The first state we became a certified licensed and insured was Montana, and it nearly broke our back. But we're on roofs, so we expect a
So it's like 50% of payroll or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, you're right. And then later from there, we went to Idaho, and I think North Dakota was.
And how does your
number
Idaho rates compare with Montana?
Much lower. I can't verbatim quote the
Yeah.
difference, but much lower. Both states are so much better than Washington, I think, is somewhat higher,
Yeah.
as is California. California's system's rigged up a little different. but-
Yeah.
Yeah, Montana's bad
Yeah.
for workers' comp. And you're starting up a business, that's a pretty.
It's just another overhead you gotta carry. Other thoughts, other things you're running into?
Question.
Yeah.
Common Core, opinions.
Yeah. I think it was well-intentioned. I think there's two problems with it. One is we need more local control of our schools, not more federal regulation. So I'm opposed to it for that reason. It's also been co-opted by special interests, which are not consistent with our local views. I think parents should have more control in the education of their kids, not less. A teacher, actually a mom in Billings, gave me an example of an assignment that her 6th grade daughter brought home from school. It was a math assignment, 6th grade daughter. And it said, and I have a copy of it on my phone, Barack Obama thinks that the minimum wage should be $15 an hour. You currently make $8.05. If Barack Obama raises your pay to $15 an hour and you work 40 hours a week, how much more will you make per week? That was the math problem. A 6th grader.
Yeah,
Oh, my goodness.
I have 2 kids in our local school system, and they held a meeting here at the school prior to bringing in the Common Core. My husband and I were one of 2 parents, 3 parents there.
Well, two parents were there because their kids were doing work in the
Being
library.
held out of school.
Right,
Yeah.
and, I mean,
No one
my,
came out.
my 7th grader brought home and it said Common Core New York, right on the top of it, to start with. And my daughter is high honorable, 4.0 student, and she banged her head for almost 3 hours on this one god-awful problem. I was raised with a book that said, this is how you add, subtract, multiply, divide. If you can do these 4 basics, you can do absolutely anything. This will take you into geometry, calculus, algebra, trigonometry, whatever you want to get to. But they are getting so far away from teaching the basics and teaching everything to the point where you're frustrating kids so much that they're going, doesn't matter, government's going to take care of us. The problem is Common Core, Montana was one of the last states to adopt it until the government came in and dangled this little carrot in front of them and said, well, we'll give you this much money. And that's where it got sucked up. And not only did they suck it up, did Bullock suck it up, he turned Montana into the testing state that set the standard for this.
It's sad to see, to come from New York and to come here and see the federal government, like a drug dealer, pushing grants and stuff on the people here, knowing that they need the money. But with every grant, there's a chain attached. There's something else attached.
So the way we reduce our dependency on the federal government is only one path. We need a vibrant private sector. So we have a local tax base, so we can wean ourselves off. At the state level, 45% of our state budget is federal money today. First step is stop taking additional federal money and build our private sector. You know, it's interesting. Gallatin County, where we created this business and created prosperity there, it's the only county in the state that didn't do the maximum mill levy increase last year because we've had so much prosperity there. There's less need to put burden. And if you have contracting economies, you have certain fixed costs in the county that don't go away. I mean, you need police officers, you need, there's a cost there. And if there's less prosperity, the tax burden gets spread across a fewer and fewer number of people. We've got to get our community growing again and bring jobs into the community so that we have a tax base to to support the essential services that we need to live. I mean, I'm not suggesting it's easy, but it's not that complicated.
You know, and I think the issue I have is that because Libby is so remote, the only mode of transportation other than your own personal vehicle is rail. So bringing manufacturing jobs in here is very hard because they would be dependent on that rail. You know, if you drove in from Kalispell, you saw the road coming in. Half of it's been fixed and is really, really nice. That part out in Swamp Creek, I've lived here since 2000, and that has been under construction
Well,
and for
Helena has
16 years.
not kept its part of the bargain related to infrastructure.
Yeah.
You know, the current governor vetoed an infrastructure bill in 13, and there was a lack of leadership in the 15 cycle around infrastructure. And the bill that did die in the House was not a good infrastructure bill, because of the $100 million, you know, almost 40% was pre-allocated to pet projects, and the remainder, counties had to apply for it. And I was out in Culver's, I've been out in eastern Montana 8 times in the last year, and they don't see people from Helena very often. And every time I go out there, I get an earful, because you know, as a county commissioner, I've been up, you know, visiting with Richland County and other places. I mean, they're hurting. A water bill in Culver's in Montana is $1,200 a year for a single-family home, and it's going up 18% this year. And because they had, you know, you take Sydney, their sewer system, they had to do work on the lagoon. They had already started their project. If that bill had passed in the 15 legislature, that project would not have qualified because they'd already broke ground on it. You know, yet there were earmarked pet projects already in there. So it was not a good infrastructure bill. We need leadership in Helena to get infrastructure funding in place, to come alongside counties and help out. Not that it's going to be a free ride. There's got to be local participation, but we got to provide the funds to help.
Well, I think part of the problem is a lot of us have a really bad taste in our mouth about the government coming in and funding anything. When I first moved here, it was right when the whole EPA thing came in here. And I sat here and watched $30,000 houses where they spent $260,000 to clean up 30,000. They could have mowed it over, dug it out, put a brand new home there for less than what they paid. And it was just frivolous.
Yeah. Common sense isn't that common anymore.
Why? And that's the issue. How do we get common sense?
Well, that's my proposition. I've never been in politics. I'm a business guy. I'm an engineer. I feel a deep obligation to the state to give back and serve. And you know, you're here obviously because you care, right? And for us, you know, we've been incredibly blessed. We've prospered in Montana. I feel an obligation to give back and serve. That's why we've filed to run for governor, and no one is going to outwork us. This is event number 6 today. I have another one after this. I did 8 yesterday. I've been doing 6 to 9 public meetings a day all over the state. We drove from Ekalaka to Eureka last week. I told you that. We went to Culver's and Webo and Wolf Point, and Hardin, and Conrad and Shelby, and we've been a lot of places. And there's a bubble in Helena. There's a bubble, and you know, that bubble needs to be popped. You know, there's sort of a sunshine pump there talking about low unemployment, and prosperity, and job creation, and this is coming out of the governor's office. But you get out into Montana, and people are hurting. We've got to build a strong economy so we have opportunities for our kids so they don't have to leave. So I'm doing this because I love Montana. We've raised our family here. We'd like to see Montana prosper. We're putting our time in. We're putting our reputation on the line. I've also committed that when I'm elected governor, we're going to give our entire salary to charity. Because I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this to serve. We've also taken 10 years of our tax returns and given them to the Associated Press because we believe in transparency. I've also made the commitment that in our campaign, we will not take any special interest PAC money. It's going to be completely funded by individuals. Corporate checks are not allowed in Montana, but special interest money is, and I think there's too much special interest influence in health. I challenge the governor to also join me in this commitment not to be influenced by special interest money, but I'm still waiting for a response from him. I know we can do better. Montana has an incredible work ethic. Montanans do. We have rich natural resources. The missing part of the equation is we don't have effective leadership in health. And if you like what you hear and you're supportive, I'd love to have you come along and help me get there. We can do this. And mostly what I need is you to talk to your friends and tell them, hey, I met this guy, and I think you might actually be able to help us. The website's gregformontana.com, and we'd love to have you on the team. And
I have one more follow-up question for you. We had quite a fiasco here last summer with wildfires. We had, for the first time since I lived here, people evacuated out of the Granite Creek area as the fire crept over. My husband does work for the Forest Service, Engineer Corps. And so I get some of the inside chit-chat. There's millions of board feet sitting on sales here. And these sales are basically halted by extreme environmentalist groups that are not even in Montana. These are people that haven't even stepped on the forest. I mean, I have a niece out of Seattle that came to visit, and she says, what are the brown patches up there? I said, that's beetle kill. She says, why don't they take it out? Because you and your friends in Seattle have decided to stop us. Now here's these forests, and I ride my horses out in these forests. They're overgrown. There's so much underbrush and fuel in there that we can't control wildfires here. Not to mention, when I go to the meeting here, they've got firefighters brought in from Australia to fight our fires. You've got 19% unemployment here. Why aren't we training our own people to work our own terrain? And then the guy makes the comment of, we don't have the firefighting equipment, but gosh, we got a lot of logging equipment because we can't log. And it's like, it just befuddles me. How can you not see how can you not see that if we manage our forests here and make them healthier? I mean, Plum Creek has done an amazing job with their land, but it's all private land.
And our state lands are managed well. I mean, I talked to timber people, it's well done. So I'm gonna have to wrap up here in a little bit, but I hear what you're saying. We ought to be managing our forests. If we manage our forests, the forests would be healthier, we'd have less forest fires, we'd have more wildlife, we'd have the jobs that come with the mills, and we'd have lower cost lumber to build our homes with. Right? It's a virtuous thing.
It might help if we stop closing off roads. I'm not here long enough, but I've heard from past commissioners that Lincoln County actually has paid for some of these roads that the Forest Service has come in, taken over and closed. So they didn't even pay for it. Came out of the tax dollars of the locals.
Yeah. Well, there's no question better is possible. And that's my proposition. Let's bring some common sense to Helena, some business experience, rather than people that have grown up inside the system that aren't connected with what's going on in real Montana. So,
Good luck.
I appreciate you all coming out, and I need your help. I think we found stuff. So, if you put your email in on our website, that'd be great. The best thing you could do is send an email out to your whole contact list and say, hey, I met this guy, check out his website, encourage him to get to know us. If you can support us at any level, if you can give us $10, that's a fantastic thing. If you do more, that's great. It does take a lot of money to run a campaign, and I can't do it. I also know that if you give me a little support, I'll be part of the team. And then I'll be your candidate, and then you're on the team. I'd love to have you all on the team, and if you each go get 10 or 20 of your friends and get them to join the team, well, we've now gotten support from every single county in the state. Over 1,500 people have supported. We outraised the current government by 43% before. Montanans are ready for new leadership, and we've been very, very encouraged. And we have the right message, and nobody's going to work harder than we will. So, thanks for being here today.
Very good. Where are you off to?
We have another private event here in town over at Venture Inn.
Where are you going to be tomorrow morning?
I'm going to be in Billings tomorrow.
What time? What time? You leaving early? You leaving late?
We're leaving after this event over here.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'd invite you to call,
Oh, thank you.
and then you could talk to the other guys. Did you get your questions in? Your
Yep,
closing
I got my question in.
Thank you, sir.